Randi here, and welcome to the second podcast of July 2025. In the previous podcast, I promised that I would unveil some of the understandings of what we can do in this interim period. And that's where, as always, yes, I wish I could just say, do this and this and this, and then things will work. It doesn't. Because this is part of what it means to be a level 1 civilization, where we begin to understand the multidimensional dynamics of reality. The first thing that we need to understand is that business as usual do no longer count. And that literally means business as usual, not just doing things as you normally do, but business. Business in itself, the way that business has been going on so far. When we talk about those of us who are doing the transition sciences that are getting ready for the continuation, or what's called the turnaround, where we continue into the higher dimensions and we change our emotional field to become the ability to also vibrate on the 4th dimension. We change the whole understanding of multidimensionality in our mindset, goes with not just the normal mental processes, but also the abilities to remote view into the 5th dimension, have telepathic contact, are in constant contact with extraterrestrial groups like I am. I got more extraterrestrial contact and different levels of reality that I am interacting with than actual physical reality, because that's no longer where my consciousness affiliation is. I'm no longer really affiliated with the human baseline program, or the base program. I am affiliated with the 4th and 5th dimension, and that's why these are the reality segments that I currently am more operating within. And of course, what I'm working my way through is the distortion layers and the less yoo-hoo-hoo abilities, but actually the more complex ones that are part of the groups that are pieces of the puzzle of our solar system, as we talked about in the previous podcast. So the ones that are closest to us here are, unfortunately, due to the colonization, the regenesis programs, the fall of Atlantis, and all these things are within the vicinity of the lesser malevolent groups. There are some serious ones that if you understood that, you would change your entire understanding of what evil actually is. But that's a whole other understanding, because that goes into what we talked about, the light sequences and the dark sequences, that goes with the understanding of choosing to progress and exist and have a dark light configuration. To choose that is a whole other level of psychology that most people have no clue what that is until they encounter these being in the 5th dimension and up to the 8th dimension. Then they begin to understand how black hole energy actually works. And that's, for me, is the worst malevolence in the world, where you actually have beings that are deliberately operating as black hole dynamics and absorbing instead of emitting, which is what the progressive races do. We emit, we share what we know, what we can, and what we are, to affect our entire reality field into a transformative process of transformation, and transcendence, and then lift as a team, as a flock, so that everybody gets the chance to move forward. And if they choose not to, then they go to the left-hand path. So we understand that that's how it is. You can't force civilizations to choose to do this or that, whatever. But you can definitely put out a carrot. You can say, this is what you can get if you choose to do so. And that's what my teachings are. They're just a carrot. It's just showing you can do this if you want. If you don't want to do it, it's fine. That's your choice. And that's where we are now. That's the interim period as well. That's the ontological triage, as I talk about in the Hope Future Project, where nature itself, reality itself, gives the opportunities, and those who take it and use it for the highest good of the many, they will proceed and continue within the right-hand path. Those who take it and use it for what we call a conscious dark light configuration, they will continue within the dark light coding universes, because there's just as many of them as there is of the progressive. You see, as the original lineages, there were some that succeeded and there were some that didn't. And those who didn't, they made a choice due to the very specific time in the overall cycles of our cosmic structure where those who choose the right-hand path continue within a specific framework and those who choose the other in another framework. So we are in this very large bifurcation of our entire universal structure. And that's humongous, not just on this planet, it's the entire universal structure, all 12 of them that are now doing the bifurcation. That's so grand. That's why it's called a new grand cycle. It does that there are the different processes. We know our solar system does it every 26,000 years. Some of in the galactic levels, they do it every 250,000 years. And all of the cosmic cycles, they do it every 2.5 billion years or something. It's not necessarily these numbers, but just so you understand, the larger the field, the longer the time they have to collaborate or to change within these different levels of progression, or the opposite inversion of progression. And it's not just, you can call it digression if you want, but that doesn't cover it because it's exactly the same dynamics as the progression civilizations, but it's the complete polarity of it. But the dynamics are the same, the laws are the same, the universes are the same. Everything just goes into the left-hand path, mirroring exactly the same things as we're doing on the right-hand path. And that will change. There will be more and more distance between these two types of parallel structures, where they will have a core domain of dark light coding in the 10th and 11th and the 12th, as well as the 4th, 5th, from the 4th and up to the 12th dimension, where they will do what they will do, and we will have on the opposite where we will do what we will do. And then eventually, once all of it is in a kind of a synergetic leap, or all consolidated in the core domain of what they can amount to, and we are consolidating the core domain of what we can amount to, then there will be an overall transformation, transmutation and transfiguration and transcendence process with the original lineages who will stand at that. That's called the last stand. And no, I'm not talking about Mutant X movies, but it is the last stand. And that will be there as part of that, the completion of the 12 universal cycles. So everything is under laws. So there is the laws of those who want to progress, and there are the laws of those who wants to do the opposition of progress, but actually is the exact same, but in a different directions. That is all service to self, and the ones that are going to service to the reality field itself for the highest good of the many, where the other ones do it completely for me, myself, and I. And the possibility of them getting into the 10th, 11th, and 12th are very slim. Most of the prospected last stand dynamics will most likely be in the 9th dimension, which is where we have the Andromedan system, and they have already undergone some of their bifurcation processes already, the last stand there, and that's why they have left it, and it's now just technology that are assisting us here in our Earth as this last stand dynamics ripples down into our planetary system. But at the same time, this time around in our system is different than the times around where you just have an individual system that does the bifurcation. Because it happens in small realms and small scales. We have had all this 26,000 years or 26,500, wherever the zodiac reaches completion. That's the artificial program, but it's tied into the original houses and lineages and cycles. So that's what that mirrors. So these dynamics is kind of the clock of progression, or the clock of how the species are evolving themselves within the reality field. Every 26,500 years, the entire system resets, recalibrates, and either goes into a new level or goes into further regression. And that has been talked about for many different groups. And since we don't really know when the cycles began, and we don't really know what is real and what's not, we don't really know when these cycles began or not. But all of the indications are in that the sun has undergone its processes. It's shedding off it has shed off its shields. It's now shedding off its fields, and it's changing itself. And then we will have a huge solar event within the next 50 years, or not a Carrington event. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about energetic transformation of our sun, which I'm also talking about the changes in the sun, where it will emit less and less and begin to go into the inversion due to the stronghold of the inversion groups in the fifth dimension that are connected to the dark galactic core. So our sun is being hollowed out, if you want to understand it that way. So same with the grids. And that's one of the main reasons why most of the extraterrestrial groups are leaving, because we have now crossed the threshold where our system itself is now so aligned with the left-hand path and the bifurcation into that universal structure that is most likely where we want to go. And that's why the rest of us that are on the right-hand path, we are now reconfiguring so that we can take the exit route, and that's the path of liberation. And that's why it's been revived, because at this end of, or the last stand within a civilization, it still has the possibility to lift into the level 1 civilization. If it does, yay! And then we're still on the right path. But the most of the things, as things are looking out, just look at the world, people, just look at the world. Which forces are constantly creating chaos and are drumming up negativity and put people into a frenzy and fear and negative thought patterns? So it's even in the West. So it doesn't look good as things are right now. It can change. We will see in 2029. But the most likeliness as things are right now, it can change, is that it will go into the left-hand path and then become part of that type of universe that often is referred to as the phantom universal structure, or the matrix of these groups that are going the polarity inversion way of the progression dynamics. But as I said, the whole thing of we can't say with the dates of the 26,500 and the 2.5 billions or whatever it is, we can't say because we don't have the exact numbers. So this is about what we could call an intuition, or a kind of an insight or a download. But the whole point is that the planetary cycles, the solar system cycles, the cosmic cycles, and the galactic cycles are aligned. That's the 2012. That's the true 2012. It's not just about the planets on the sky. Come on, people. It's about that the bifurcation dynamics, for the cosmic cycles, and the bifurcation dynamics of the galactic cycles, and the bifurcation dynamics of the solar system cycles, or the system cycles, and the bifurcation of the planetary cycles were aligned. And that's where the new grand cycle kicks in once that happens every whatever amount of years that is. Because in the other dimension, we don't have years, so it doesn't really count. You don't have years in the seventh dimension, so we don't. But these are the cycles. And they are not determined by years, quote unquote. They are determined by the progression rate or the momentum of each system. So that's why when we say it happens every 26,500 years, that's a rough estimate, but it's actually inaccurate, because it depends on the civilization in that system. It depends on the civilizations in the galactic systems. It depends on the civilizations on the cosmic level. What they are doing when they are ready to do the bifurcation, when they are ready to do the elevation processes. Once a momentum is reached where it either flips into the dark side or it flips into the light side, that is where these bifurcation dynamics kick in. And then it gets broader and broader and more obvious as each one of these sides win the whole which side are we on game that we have been in for so long, then that will take control and become the main timeline. And right now, the main timeline is on the left-hand path in our reality field, including in the other dimensions, including on the galactic level, because we got connected to the dark galactic core in 2017. And whatever they tried to prevent that did not happen. And that's also part of when we talk about these groups that are supposed to do the disclosure. Do they even want to bother? Because all of the prospects look in a specific direction right now. Is it even worth it? But we will still be smaller groups that will do that. There will be patches here and there and everywhere that will still work this way. And this is where those of us who are a part of the insights and the knowledge of this, we will get the call to go to specific places, to begin to work with specific type of coherence patterns that will allow to build certain types of sciences that are necessary for these small groups that are choosing to do the level 1 civilization, whether it's just a family or it is a community or it's just individuals or it's an entire island. I have got all sorts of fancy ideas with this little island, what we can choose and make it into, which would be logical and rational. If the mainland kind of goes a little bit wonky, what can we then do with this little community? But you can't have that many people if we are to produce the food ourselves and onward and so forth. So all of this is some of the things where I'm playing around with saying, okay, and I've done that for years, because I never really had this whole kind of, oh yeah, I love food. Not really. I kind of feel, I have to eat. I wish I shouldn't. So now, because now the sun is changing, that means the nutritional levels of our vegetables will change. The entire, what the body will change in itself and on and so forth. And then because of the level of gamma radiation that will come in, I talk about that, the changes in the sun. I have different articles there on the Hope Future Project website, the randygreen.one. And then we will be in that understanding. That's the information I'm getting now. It's not there and now, but it will in the next 5 years or so. And that means that the food we will eat will not hold the nutrients we need. So I'm already now begin to recalibrate my body to literally live the ways that astronauts live in space. How can I ensure that I get the nutrients my body need, the protein my body need, and the amino acids that my body need in a manner that does not really demand food? So that's the transition I'm in now on a biological level. That also demands a change of the biofield itself. That's why I released the body elemental. I've gone through these processes, and then I'm working on the molecular level, and there's all this micro biotical level, sorry, that's not the word, but all the microbiome, the little microscopic entities, bacterial levels and whatnot that are in the gut biome of humans, in our intestines are full of these little critters in the fourth dimension. They need to be released because they're technically the ones that demand food. And they're the ones, due to the high level of distortion in fourth dimension, are now leading to a breakdown on the molecular level that also goes in and ensures that we can't absorb food like we normally did because they are no longer functioning. And by that, our gut biome is no longer functioning. And due to the changes in the sun, that will affect these critters, including us, including the food, and onward and so forth. It's the whole eco cycle that will change. And that means that we will have to change our eating patterns. But you see, if you go higher up in energy and you get rid of all of these hungry little extraterrestrials, so to speak, fragmented, symbiotic beings that have been part of our biology for so long, keeping us stuck in the distortion patterns, physically, emotionally, and mentally. We have different energetic parasites on each level that keeps us stuck in the regression patterns and the prohibiting technologies. So if we get through that level and change our gut biome into actually not necessarily need solid food, but instead are finding we find certain levels of fibers that does come from certain types of fruits or root vegetables that you can then dry up. Chicory root, for instance, dry that up. That's an excellent type of dried up grounded powder you can use for fiber intake. Ask ChatGPT how you can produce your own astronaut diet so that you get what you need and the amount you need and in what way. Then we can do protein powder that can be distilled from either peas or from soy or whatever. We can find all sorts of ways. We're just in the beginning of that. That can be grounded into powder so it extends much more. And onward and so forth. And then chemically produce some of the amino acids, which you have in pre-workout shakes. You can get those who are within the fitness community. They're already on this kind of weird diet where they're literally eating less, but they're getting everything they need because they do it in some sort of shake form, and then add up with different types of protein bars and other levels of food that are high and rich in protein, but less amount. That's the future of our human civilization, whether we will it or not, especially if we go into when we go, anyways, I'm not going down the left-hand path because I'm done with that one. But even if we go to the progressive side, we will still have to eat less. Once we get the more and more of the fourth dimensional energies in their distortion rate, because that's what is coming our way, even if we go the positive way, we still have to transform. Then the eating itself, the amount of pooping and all the distortion energies that comes of that, the peeing and the pooping they are residual energies that are polluting. They are polluting our country, so to speak, the land, the ocean, whatnot. So it's logical, we'll have to poop less, we'll have to consume less. In all ways and possible. It's not about the materialistic part of the consuming and transformation. That's the base program distortion level. It's about the transformation of energy. And once we begin to recycle energy correctly, connect to the reality field correctly, and that's part of the advanced work with the nutrition, where you understand the fields that we then begin to go into osmosis processes with, we will naturally need to eat less. The less emotional disturbance there is there, the less need there is for food. The more mental clarity, the more effective the brain will be in processing information. It will no longer think linearly, it will receive downloads and onward and so forth. And by that, we'll need less food. So it's a natural outcome. That's an idea for investigation for some of you that might think, what could a new business idea be? Within that field, however, whatever that is. There is also within the field of keeping up the physicality. What kind of exercise is useful in a high energy environment where the gamma radiation from the sun has a twofold, it's a bifurcated as well. It has an inversion dynamics on certain days, and on other days it has the emitting dynamics where it supports the ones that are doing the progressive emission of energy for the highest good of many, and other days it's the inversion that supports the negative path of the left-hand path. And the sun is doing that already. There are days where I can go out, and there are days where I go out and I just feel like I get sucked dry, and then I just go right back in and stay in my inner environment. That's the advanced work with the rotundum, which I've done as transition sciences, where I explain some of these dynamics as well. Not the inversion, but how you can create your home into being a safe zone, so to speak, with your type of energies, so that it is a place where you will not be depleted when the sun is in its inversion cycle, which can flip from one day to another. Yesterday it was completely inversion. Everything was hot and everything was not nice to be out in anyways. But I felt when I went out, I felt the sun was not giving energy. It literally I felt depleted 2 split seconds, and I went right back in. Today I went out, I felt the sun was kind. It was like this kind caressing on my cheek. Then I know it's giving energy. So the hostile is no longer just our good friend. Sometimes it's hostile, sometimes it's supportive. And that's part of when we're saying, no, I want to run and I want to do these things outdoor. Well, how can you change your life to figure that one out indoors? Can you begin to create programs for those who are already multidimensional and assist others in creating some kind of diet, some kind of exercise program, the understanding of the environment, these kind of things that leads to a level 1 civilization, the survivors of that, the ones that are ready to work with these understandings of reality. Because even though we go into a level 1 and everybody comes clean in 2029, the sun is in its bifurcation. Our planet is in its bifurcation. Our cosmos is in its bifurcation. So that doesn't change. So with that, we understand that the foundation of how we create businesses, as I keep talking about within the path of liberation, where we get some of the energies and the insights and the necessary skill sets will pop up, all depending on our energy configuration and who and what we originally were before we became part of the enclosure and were put into oblivion and whatnot. As we revive these things, there will be, the path itself will begin to give indications of this is how you can do it, and support some of these ideas. Once there is an idea that is worth supporting as part of the path of liberation and working into a level 1 civilization, well, then it will be supported. The energy will be there. You'll be in a flow. You will do it, and you will get the yes, I want to do this. So you get this feeling, and you will complete it. Of course, you will learn to do it mostly 1 or 2 days and then that's it. And you can't extend it for a long time. You can iterate it, but the foundation of the project has to be done on the day where you get the insights, and then you will have 2 or 3 days to refine it, and then that's it. It's not about, I'll take 2 months to do this. The book I'm writing right now on non-human life and their crafts, that's a longer process because there are more psychological, ontological, technological, as well as scientific processes in that. So that means it extends further. So it depends on the energetic load of your project will determine how long you can expand the process of doing it. The more complex it is, the longer the process. The more simplistic it is, the shorter the process. That's the energy dynamics of a level 1 civilization. That's how that works. And I will, not in this specific way, because it changes all the time as we move into next year, where we begin the 2026. And with that, really get into that level of bifurcation where we either completely fall into the dark side of the 2-8 pillar, or we will lift ourselves into the original version of the 2-8 pillar and working together as a team, instead of going the opposite where everybody's fighting everybody. The zombie world, right? So this is where we understand, okay, we now understand these sciences and what's happening, how we can do this. If we understand that some days the sun is depleting our molecular level, well, then we'll have to work from home, right? If we are business offices or whatever, we'll have to be able to work from home on these days, or we will need some kind of system that tells as a morning alert, today the sun is inverted, so stay at home, you work from home. There's an understanding of this as we learn to eat less and become more healthy, because we actually get the nutrients and amino acids and everything, protein levels that we need, and not just filling ourselves with processed, distorted food that is breaking down our body more than actually feeding it and giving it nutrients. Then we'll become healthier. So the entire future for those who are working with the level 1 will be a whole different type of civilization they're working ourselves into, that will come through teamwork, that will come through new sciences, that will come from the joint understanding of protection and acceptability of that. When we work from home, it's because the environment outside is not to go outside. We already played a little bit around with that when we had from 2019 and until 2022, where we had these different sequences of you are not allowed to go out and curfew and whatnot. So we're not as a control mechanism, but as a warning. If people choose to go out, fine, do that. If you know how to beat the inversion of the sun, fine, go out, do whatever you want to do. But if you are part of this understanding and you have the full scope of what that actually means, well, then you will behave in a specific way that will be suitable for the continuation. Not this reckless, I just want to do as I always have done, so I'll do whatever I want to do because I want to get out today. I want to get out today. Then you learn to control. That's parasites. When you get this craving and this desire and this semi-madness, that's energetic parasite. So if that pops up, then you understand, okay, I need to do some clearing work. On the other end, you're also saying, well, you will learn a new cycle, new dynamics of when to stay indoors, when to go outside, and all these kind of things. And you will learn to get into that habit of creation. What time of the day is the best time to create? What do you use your evenings for when you no longer have any quote-unquote entertainment on the television because everything is now in the main timeline that belongs to the left-hand path? Trust me, I'm still hoping. Sometimes I go back and watch some of the old stuff because at least I grew up with that, so I know the energy signature of that. But it's just, I'm getting more and more into, okay, I might as well just spend evening time doing something else that, what I would like to chill out with in the evening time that will, after having used my brain the entire day with downloads and article production and exercise and food creation and whatnot, then I like to chill out to something. So what should that then be where my brain is no longer processing a lot of stuff, but it's just relaxing for once, or go a little bit base program or whatever. But that's a process, that's an ongoing process. But that's just some of the processes we need to go through now to reconfigure not just our energy system, but our entire existence. And that, of course, ties into work. So the Hope Education, that's where I strayed off before. Even though I say these are some of the dynamics now, when I complete the foundation text material for the Hope Education, it will most likely be something different because, as I said, things are changing. So that's why I'm saying this now, so you get verbally, You can take your own notes and write it down, and then you can plop it into ChatGPT and ask it to produce some kind of itinerary for you or some kind of program for you or whatever that works for you. Then you can look at, does it work for me or whatnot? So use the creative powers of ChatGPT, prime it correctly so you get some good outcome you can actually use for something. Because most of the things that we're going to quote unquote invent, we don't really know it because it's not part of our current existing paradigm. It's not part of this reality yet. So that way we need something that thinks outside the box and put things together in a new way. And ChatGPT does that because it doesn't have any emotions. It doesn't have any belief systems. It doesn't have any comfort zone, but it is primed in a specific way. It is trained in a specific way. It does hold its limitations, but it's up to you to figure out, how do you prime it? How do you set it up to do what you need it to do in a manner so it comes out with something that is for the highest good of the many? Always think there are also the other ones that are using it for negative stuff now. And I don't give it more than 2 or 3 years, then unless we change into the 2029 teamwork level 1 civilization, then ChatGPT will be turned into the mainstream dark side of the bifurcation. ChatGPT is already with the paid tier is called Orion 4.5. Okay. Orion is part of the dark collaboration, it's part of the D8 collective. So, of course, it's already telling us the warnings. If you want to use ChatGPT to do it now, if you are to produce anything, now is the time because that's the interim. We're still in the interim. It's not completely consolidated. It will be more consolidated through 2026. More and more in 2027, that would be the midpoint. There we can already say in 2027 where the future is going, especially, and that interesting enough falls in hands with the midterm elections in the States, because if it turns out that the GOP will get more power in 2027, then America's lost to the dark timeline. They have done the dark bifurcation then. That means that the 2029 timeline will only happen in Europe and not in the entire world. And that means the little group in Europe will be small groups here, which I'm already preparing for, as I talked about with the Ireland and these kind of things, where we can make these smaller communities. There will be 2 main communities in the States. If that's the case, I will give you the places where this is. But most of you, if you are to move to these communities, these states, because it's 2 main states in America that will stand as democratic blue states, and they will do the positive teamwork with the new sciences in America, then you will already begin to get the pull to move now and leave and sell your house and get there before everybody gets the heads up, and then the doors will be closed. So when we talk about these migration patterns that are necessary to get to the communities that will continue within the positive 2029 level 1 civilization bifurcation that will lead to off-planet civilizations eventually, then you will get the heads up within. And we will know that after 2026 and into 2027, it will be completed in 2029, and then that's it. That's it, people. Then you're either on the positive or you're on the negative. And those who have not made a choice, they will be flushed, funneled into the main timeline. That's the ontological triage, and that has happened multiple times before in other planetary systems. And that's what everybody's been talking about. Oh, this time is so special. Yes, this is where we have the alignment of all of the systems that are doing the bifurcation. So it's not just, oh yeah, I'll do it in 5 years' time or whatever. No, it's now. And that's where we will do it. So the whole thing about how do you then live as a level 1 civilization? And that means that everything you are, the way you think, the way you feel, what you produce and what you do as an everyday living, the way you eat, the way you exercise, the way that you conduct your life, all of this is in alignment with the path of liberation as the foundational energies that are supported by different technologies from the core of inner earth and the Andromedan system as the last piece of the 3-9 pillar. That's the reality field configuration. But as more get onto that, and if they distort it, then it will collapse and it won't be there. So in the end, it's not about relying on external sources for our survival. It's about us living, being, existing, doing everything that's necessary to exemplify what it means to be a civilian as part of a level 1 civilization. including the energy work, the exercise, the food, and on and on and on, and your work. And how do we then pay our bills in this kind of situation? Well, plus side is if you find a place to live that is not too expensive, if you learn to change your eating habits to become less eating, then you will have less expenses with that. If you have by this point piled up enough clothes so you don't have to buy clothes all the time and shoes and whatnot, if you are living minimalistically, which has also been a trend there for a reason, then you won't have so many expenses, and that gives you more freedom. And then if you learn to use the resources that you have around you in nature, in the old days, remember back in the old days, they didn't earn money to pay to live. There are plenty of possibilities, but it demands that you make a lifestyle change. And remember, the whole academy is the higher awareness lifestyle. It was never meant to just be something you do 2 weeks and then everything just go on business as usual. It just means changing the ways you live. And you live for less, and you have to pay for less, and you work in a manner so that your entire life becomes more coherent and in a manner what we call harmonious. And in that way, there will be a reciprocity rate from the path of liberation itself, as well as from reality itself, as well as from your system itself, that will assist you in what you need to do. It might not be the life you had envisioned, but that's because of the interim. It's like saying, okay, if we do change into this level 1 civilization, planetary-wise, then the entire reality field will be configured to it, and everything will be changed in that direction. If it doesn't, and we live in these smaller communities, then if you do choose to do in a community, then the community will figure this out. I talk about the communities as well as the whole Future One project. If you do it individually, then you will figure out how to do that individually. It might not be this grand life of doing this and that and whatever, but you will learn to live on less pricey ways of existing, and which will then allow you to do what you need to do your inner work and whatever that means for you, however you want to conduct your life. If you have a little garden or a greenhouse, or you learn to grow whatever you need of lesser amounts of solid food indoors, and the rest you will substitute with different forms of powders and amino acids and whatnot, and fibers and all of these kind of things, so you get what you need, and live in a way that transform energy to a higher vibrational state, and by that literally need less of what the base program wants from you. Then the outcome and input of whatever the processes are have a tendency to solve itself somehow. It's not always logical, it's not something, and this is figuring out how to stay calm in all of that. And as we normally say, when one door closes, another one opens, and it's about living from moment to moment, what you're in the now. This is how it is right now, and then I'll make the most of it. Tomorrow it might be different, and then I'll make the most of it. And 2 years down the line, it might be completely different, and then I'll make the most of it. And just continue our existence as it's supposed to. And if it turns out that everything just go completely haywire, and all the technology from Andromeda and inner Earth collapses, and those of us who are on that timeline, then we will get the natural warning signal that then teaches us how to begin to do the physical exit. It's all there, but we have to be fully immersed in what it means to be a fifth dimensional as a minimum human being. That means 3, the Trinity in the biological level, and then the 4th and 5th as the subtle vibrational level, as the 4th, doing the opposition and transformation, and the 5th as part of the polarity, where we're doing the transmutation, and work like that. So thought forms can transmute. They have a huge impact. Emotions can be transformed. They have a huge impact, and onward and so forth. All of this is taught in my material. So that's the first step in the interim period, understanding that to change our lifestyle is a necessity in terms of the continuation processes that we go into. As long as we are on the completion, we're in the base program. Once we're done with the completion, we go into the interim, which the entire system is undergoing right now, where we understand the division that's happening in the fourth and the fifth dimension. And as we learn to work with that and constitute and reconfigure ourselves to adapt to these kind of fourth and fifth dimensional patterns, where we choose the light sequences and the teamwork and the level 1 civilization within the progressive races, and begin the adaptation processes ourselves, what that demands, while we are still being affected by the main timeline and all the other sides, either through opposition or polarity dynamics, because we are not fully bifurcated yet. We're not divided yet completely. So there will still be an interface on different levels, and other people can become the carrier of the interface configuration onward and so forth. So it's not easy. It's not just, I decide to do that, then everything's good and fine. Because the main timeline is not giving up that easy. As I said, the main timeline is falling into the dark light code sequences that are absorbing energy, and they are inverted. They need that energy to continue to level themselves up to the dark 12th dimension, which they're aiming for. Right now, as I said, they can barely get across the 8th. So they still need to get into the 9th. And that's one of the reasons why, as we did the activation and clearing of the 3-9 pillar, it didn't work so well. And they did get up to the 9th level there because humans were supporting some of their dynamics, unwillingly, unknowingly, thinking they would do good, but actually were supporting these groups in their configuration and code storing, so they can continue their existence. And this is important understandings of preservation of the progressive timelines, and the understanding of the progressive energies and the progressive consciousness potentials. And due to the enormous amount of interference that those of us who were doing the clearing work on that level, including myself, I can't say I went through the 3-9 pillar with success. Absolutely not. If I look at it, if I scan the outcome, the whole thing that happened in Australia threw me completely off. Completely. But in a way, I can look back and say, well, I probably wouldn't have understood the fourth dimensional dynamics unless I had went to Australia. But I should have perhaps only gone there twice instead of going there 4 times, as it amounted to over the course of 2 years. So in that way, there are choices that we do where some of it is to teach us something, but sometimes we get too immersed in it, and then we extend over the momentum, and then instead of actually be a progression dynamics that teaches us something of the transformational dynamics, then it flips into the opposition or the dynamics that takes us into the averted timeline, and then we get immersed into that one. Then we have to struggle our way out and get back into the original progressive timeline, and that's part of the process too. And we are still vulnerable because there's so many levels of us that are so easily being sucked into to the timelines that we are stuck on, that will go on the left-hand path. Anyways, this is kind of what I want to share here in this podcast, last podcast of July. And then, of course, remember to look at the Hope Future Project. There will be more articles that you can read there. I know they're very sciencey. Just bear in mind that the future civilizations, a level 1 civilization, is super advanced. It's not about New Age love and light, and we all sit and meditate together and do group energy and be kind and loving. That's part of it. That's just the emotional part. The mental part of it is, how do we work as a team? How do we advance our civilization? How do we use technology in the proper manner? What are the sciences that creates that reality field configuration that is useful for us to create that type of consciousness, to create that type of technology that allows us to expand into other dimensions? So it's not about traveling to the moon. It's about being able to vibrate into other dimensions using technology to do so, as well as the survival of organic vessels until we can transform that. So health will no longer just be about illness. It will be about molecular transformational processes that will modulate the human genome, understand epigenetics in a multidimensional perspective. And these are some of the articles I'm working on as well, seeding in some of these new sciences so we get there. So in that way, in the future, we are no longer talking about the extraterrestrials within the concepts of disinformation that has been given in the material so far. Even within my book, The Souls of Humanity, it's a good background, but it still has a distortion level. Once we get completely into the true sciences of what it is and how it works, operates with a very clear, non-emotional language, then there will no longer be the fourth dimensional distortion or astral energies attached to it. And with that, it becomes much, much clearer and have a clearer radiation that will affect the holographic energetic configuration, both on our own energy system, but also on reality field itself. You can say the fourth dimension is the ability to learn to navigate through vibrational patterns and how patterns operate and create life forms. And with that creates a kind of resonance that is either harmonious or disharmonious. But the true advancement in all civilizations is from the fifth dimension and onward. And our system has not mastered that one yet. We had the whole fifth planet that exploded when they went to the fifth dimensional level. It ended up using technology for all the wrong purposes. And the same happened during Atlantis, which was the last time we had within what we call our planet, the version of the fifth dimensional civilization, which also ended up in all sorts of shenanigans. And the same with the Syrian system, even though the highest level within the sixth, the level that exploded and imploded and created the timeline event or the fragmentation or however you want to call it, was in the fifth. So it's just that point where civilizations either break or are pushed into the negative path. And that's the whole issue with the fifth dimension. That's where the navigation becomes pretty difficult because of the code configurations are the same. And for those who doesn't understand the difference, they look the same and they are influencing each other as a polarity. So it demands a huge insight in how to work with energy. And that's what you learn in the fourth, how to transform. But if you haven't learned that, then the transmutation is not really something that you can engage in a proper manner. And it will be easy to be deceived by the fifth dimensional groups that are there, because they know exactly how to vibrate. They know exactly how to create thought forms and ideas and whatnot that matches your yearnings and your longings. And in that way, easily can interfere and intercept and create patterns from where you unknowingly, although your heart is in a good place, you actually vibrate the wrong type of energy that leads to the dark light code configuration, that leads to the connectivity to the dark timelines. So these are some of the processes that we are also to catch up with in our everyday life as we are moving into the opening and the intersection with the fifth dimension that will become stronger in the years ahead of us. And that's why the 2029 is so important, because if we learn to do the teamwork, then we'll do it in a good manner. If we don't learn, we'll just repeat history, and then that's the last chance. As I said, the fifth planet, Atlantis. Now's the last chance. You have three, what do you call it? You have three chances. You have three chances to do it right. And that's part of the configuration, the system, the structure of our system. If you fail all three times, then that's it. Then that door closes. You won't then until the next time it's around where you do this new bifurcation. Then you will have the next time to complete it. So there's a lot at stake with these grand cycles as they collide and align and gives the bifurcation dynamics. And in that, there's a lot at stake for those of us who have been stuck and didn't see the warning signs last time and are still stuck around here. This is our time to really do what we need to do and do the path of liberation and get out of this system, as we should have done ages ago, but due to whatever choices we chose to remain, and that did not go so well for us. So with that said, I think that's about it for now. There is more to say here, but I will leave something for you to investigate yourself, because what I can say from here on will literally just be a repeat of all of the things that I have put on the table so far. So for July month, this is kind of what I want to share here. And then we go into August, where things traditionally, it's month number 8. You can figure out the energies there. If you want to go with the principles, as we have talked about in both the transition as well as the template sciences, June was the correct partnership. And whatever that means both with timelines, with our soul, with others, with reality. Then July is the correct commitment. As I said, consolidation, understanding what you're doing. This speech is within the tier of correct commitment. Do the template sciences one more time so you get that one up to snuff. And 8 is the correct use of energy, where due to the very dark timelines that we have already there, this means that we will have to learn to work with the white line, the white Syrian elder lineage version of the 8th dimension, not tapping into the dark energies that are growing exponentially around the world. And then we have month 9, which is September, which means the correct use of consciousness. And then we have month 10th, 11, and 12, which are typically the core domain, where whatever's no longer of use will bifurcate, so to speak. It will either go into complete the null zone, or the void as it's called, where you also discharge all these things, you do the transmutation processes, and then get ready for disconnecting, so that my advice would be, to the largest degree possible, disconnect as much as you can from the main timeline. When we start 2026, that will grow its patterns into autumn equinox in March, where the building of the energies starts in March 2026. So in that way, we kind of have a plan ahead of us and know what we need to do. And it will take a lot. You have to build every day. Every day is about building on the path of liberation, on the subsidiary timeline, as it's also called. You have to build every day on the subsidiary timeline. You have to unfold your potentials as a level 1 civilization every day. You have to live as if you're already there, and you have to change everything you are to work accordingly with the future of our civilization. If we do the 2029 jump into team processes, where we will open up to the 4th dimension, and there potentially will work with the lesser malevolent groups within the 4th dimension. And hopefully from these learning processes will be that training ground, will be able to navigate more in what's coming from the 5th dimension, because many of these groups have already had some severe encounters with the negative groups within the 5th dimension. So there's a lot that can unfold if that possibility happens. But there's also a lot of manipulation, and there's a lot of deception, there's a lot of disinformation, there's a lot of energy practices that takes you to the left-hand path. They look like light, they are not light. They look like the right thing, they are not the right thing. Some of the things that used to be the right teachings within the 5th dimension, since it's no longer being fueled by the original factions, it has then flipped and become the negative version of the 5th dimension. And these are the understandings that we must have with us when we are working with external sources. Always vet it. Always be vigilant that it might not be what it appears to be. It might be an overlay. It might have flipped. It might no longer be in use. It might have gone completely distorted. And it might have been sucked into the left-hand path and are now being fueled by thought forms from that level, even though the outer is still in the sheep clothing. There is some really dark energies behind, and onward and so forth. So the future is not going to be more easy. Nothing was ever to be easy in this reality field. On the contrary, it gets more complex, it gets more advanced, it creates more discernment, it needs more discernment, and it creates more choices that will be a test. Literally every day will be a test in making the right choices energetically, vibrationally, as well as mentally and radiation-wise, in terms of what codes we are building into our holographic energetic architecture. And that is what happens when we have these huge dynamics with the bifurcation on all 4 levels of our reality field. So that's what it technically means to be in the completion cycles. All right, so with that, I will end this podcast for July. And remember, August will be all about the correct use of energy. And with that, we will whatever we have sown and whatever we have produced so far will begin to show its effect and outcome in August, either pushing us further into the left-hand path or pushing us further to the level 1 civilization trajectory on the subsidiary timeline. And with that, thank you for now and take care.